platform. We are so happy to have you here to engage in a lively discussion about the role of and GCM. Yeah, good. I want to take this opportunity to thank to our co-organizers, UNICEF, Tartesam, IOM, IFMCA, and especially I wanted to thank UNICEF for this wonderful space today. We have with us two special guests today, Wenli, who is a Director of International Partnerships at IOM, and Verena Naus, Global Chief of Migration Displacement at UNICEF. Wenli.
Thank you. And good morning, colleagues, to colleagues who are joining here in the room and both also joining online. It's my great pleasure to join this discussion on this very important topic, youth and children engagement in GCM. According to UN DESA statistics in 2020, children and youth accounted for 14.6% and 11.3% of the total migrant population respectively. And migrant youth and children, particularly those who are unaccompanied or separated from their parents, are particularly vulnerable in terms of accessing health, education, and receiving protection. And they face heightened risks of violence, exploitation, abuse, such as trafficking in persons. IOM has been working with and for migrants, including children and youth, since its inception. IOM puts emphasis on empowering and engaging youth and children in issues that affect them, including mitigating risks they are exposed to and preventing and responding to violence, abuse, and exploitation. As the coordinator of the UN Migration Network, IOM has been working to facilitate meaningful participation of youth and children in migration governance discussions, including in the review and follow-up of GCM. We are heartened to see active engagement of youth in the establishment of the UN Migration Network and its activities, and in contributing to COVID-19 responses at all levels, and also in participating in all 5 regional GCM reviews, as well as the preparation of the IMRF, including the drafting of the Progress Declaration. We welcome the reaffirmation, the draft Progress Declaration, of the commitment to protect the rights of migrant children regardless of their migratory status, and to uphold the principle of the best of the interests of the child. However, we believe there should be stronger recognition of the agency of children and youth to make changes, and their role in contributing to policy making and implementation. As we are now entering the next phase of GCM implementation, it's important that youth and migrant youth and children continue to raise your voice, not only on your rights and vulnerabilities, but also on your role as agents of change. Youth and children should leverage your knowledge and insights into issues that are not accessible to adults to inspire innovative solutions to existing problems. And it's also very important that the protection of the rights of child is included in the indicators to be developed and becomes a key criteria for measuring the success of GCM. IOM is committed to facilitating the role of migrant youth and children in GCM implementation, creating more space for youth participation in the work of UN Migration Network, promoting models of youth-led and children-led initiatives to ensure policies respond to the needs of children and youth in all contexts of migration management, such as employment, climate change, poverty, urban planning, education, and health. As the Chinese saying goes, the world is yours as well as ours. But in the last analysis, it belongs to you, young people. We count on the contribution of migrant youth and children to further advance the objectives of GCM and to help shape a future that you want and you deserve. You can count on IOM's support every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's nice to come after you and an easy job. I'm very, very happy to be here today on behalf of UNICEF. But most importantly, I want to thank all the youth leaders, youth organizers, youth partners, and others like Terre des Hommes and others who have been coming together for putting this agenda on the table. For me, the week of the IMRF has started with a discussion on children and the GCM that was convened by the Initiative Child Rights in the Global Compact. And it ends for me also with this discussion on youth leadership and youth innovations. And I think there could be no better way to start and to end the IMRF this year. The question really that I sometimes get asked is, why is youth engagement important for the GCM? It is such a stupid question, isn't it? It is obvious that youth engagement is critical. If we want to have good migration policies, if we want to have buy-in, social buy-in, if we want to tap into the talents and the ideas and the innovations and the insights of young people, whether those are young people who have moved or those are young people who are welcoming others in their communities, in their schools, in their football clubs, in their workshops, understanding and listening and engaging and partnering and co-creating solutions is the only way we can actually tap into that potential and address what are really sometimes difficult challenges. How do we create societal consensus around inclusive migration policies? How do we tackle xenophobia together? How do we ensure that solidarity just doesn't last for 3 months when there is a crisis, but continues over the years, as we are seeing in many countries? How do we rethink and reimagine the way we think about migration, not as a trade-off between, talent pathways, economic interests, negotiate? How do we rethink, reimagine that migration and mobility above all, in all its facets, is managed in a way that it doesn't matter where you come from, so that you can equally participate in, and that where and how young people are moving, they're safe, but they're also supported, and they are not relegated to the coffee side conversations or the side events, but they're sitting at the table where discussions are taking place. So really for me, and I think we have seen it in action, we have seen and listened to the contributions of youth leaders at the opening of the IMRF, in the policy debate, in the roundtables. That voice is critically needed in the room, not outside, in the room. But obviously, I think there's more to do. At the moment, I think we've done pretty well together to have young people in the room at the IMRF, but are young people also in the room when laws are drafted, when policies and investment decisions are taken? Can we be more open and more inclusive at the beginning of actually identifying what a problem is and co-creating the solutions together? And look around examples where, the Migration, Youth and Children platform has tapped into the potential and actually identified innovations, solutions led by youth for youth in the context of migration. I'm thinking here of the xenophobia barometer in Colombia, an example of an excellent idea by a young person to address something as critical as xenophobia by monitoring it and tracking it. If we don't have you in the room to A, ask difficult questions, B, help us find good solutions, we can't move forward. So the long answer to this question is, youth participation, meaningful youth participation, youth engagement, at every step of the way is the only way that together we can succeed. And in 4 years down the road, we need to have, we need to be in a different space again. So let's not even accept today's status quo. I think we've made progress together in the last few years, claiming your seat, securing your seat, learning and benefiting from your solutions. But 4 years down the road, let's keep on pushing the boundaries. One thing that as UNICEF we are trying to do is also push the boundaries on our own end. So together with Migration Youth Platform, we are actually trying to break up our own glass ceilings. And the new fellowship program that we announced earlier this week is really meant to do that, because it's nice to say, okay, young people need to be in the room, but are they in our rooms when we are designing our own programs? And through the YOMA Youth Fellowship program, where we want to specifically open up opportunities for paid earning experiences in UNICEF, and it's open hopefully to other partners in the future, we want to also make sure that we are shaking up our own bureaucracy and system so that those ideas that you have, but also those difficult questions that you need to ask us, are at the table where we are, and that we can together then take the solutions forward and change things for the better. So that is my only long answer to the question. It's a pleasure to be here. I really look forward to the continuation and the discussion. And let us be very, very bold in our ambition and very pragmatic in how we get there. I look forward to the work to go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy and Verena. Really, these were truly inspiring words. I think the final day of the IMRF is as a natural opportunity to look back, to see where we are at, what has been discussed during the last couple of days. And what has been discussed are best practices and innovative approaches to protective migrants, also young migrants in vulnerable situations, and solutions to advance their socioeconomic inclusion. We also discussed the challenges and gaps in the GCM implementation. The demographic boom across much of the world has made these migration-related issues particularly important for all young people. Youth tend to face higher rates of under and unemployment. They lack opportunities to be heard. Sometimes, often, they feel exclusion from the society. And given that youth also tend to face higher immigration rates, these issues, GCM implementation and achievement, are of crucial importance going forward. However, at the same time, we must move beyond simply recognizing the vulnerabilities of migrant youth to maximizing their role in spurring development. Children and youth have very unique migratory experiences due to their adaptability, their ability to quickly absorb a new language or new culture. We should be listening because of that to youth recommendations, because in all stages of policy and program development, implementation, review, rather than make broad assumptions on their behalf. Young people must be part of the solution to make migration safe for everyone. And thanks to our persistence and support of our amazing partners, we definitely made progress in this regard. So for the past 3 years, the MyCP has enabled youth participation in various migration spaces at international and regional levels. For instance, we co-hosted IMRF Preparatory Roundtable 3 on access to services and social inclusion. Now our delegation is present here at this first IMRF, and we managed to speak and intervene at many crucial sessions. That includes the multi-stakeholder hearing, Roundtable 4, policy debate, and plenary session. At the same time, we must continue pushing for youth and children engagement, and we must continue pushing to be meaningfully involved in all policy processes, with meaningfully being the key word, because our engagement so far hasn't been made sustainable or nor standardized. And in order to maximize the role of youth in migration policy processes, member states and organizations need to center youth and child empowerment, development, and self-representations as key pillars of successful GCM implementation. I'm very interested to hear from our panelists, both online and here in the room, concrete examples on on effective facilitation of children and youth participation. I hope that you will get inspired.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here today with us. My name is Florencio Vente. I'm the Latin American from the Migration, Youth and Children platform. And today I would have the honor to be the moderator of this panel. Today we have 4 incredible panelists that will share with us some ideas and good examples of how we can implement the Global Compact on Migration and how these good practices can help us to include the children, to include the youth, and also have a development in all of the global compact of migration. So for today's panel, we have 4 wonderful panelists. So the first one will be Mahmoud Al-Hamoudi. He is the liaison officer for the Human Rights and Peace Issues of the International Federation for Medical Students Association. Be joining us online. We have Caroline Horn. She is the head of Destination Unknown campaign for Terre des Hommes with Residence Innovation Facilities Consulting Child and Youth Organization representative. We also have Gregory Diansansa Majuku. He is the Policy Partnership and Advocacy Officer from the African Europe Diaspora Development Platform. And finally, we have Alankrita Dayal. She also will join us online. She is the founder of Program from the Future. So now I invite our 2 panelists that are here on site and also the ones that we have online to join the panel and start our discussion. Also, I kindly ask everyone that is on site if you can move a little bit forward in order that also people that is with us can see you. It will be perfect. So to start, as we are going to discuss how or these policies or how this action that we have from youth leaders can change a narrative and everything that we are doing for the implementation of the Global Compact of Migration, I will ask Alankrita to join us in the first question. So the first question, Alankrita, join us. I would want to know from your perspective, what do you people want and call for, and what are their needs for participation in this engagement? We want to hear your thoughts, and welcome.
Thank you, Florencio. So I just wanted to quickly check in if you're able to see my video.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, amazing. So thank you again for the opportunity to raise voice on the needs of migrant and refugee youth who are within our communities. So a quick introduction, my name is Alankrita Dell, and I'm the founder and executive director of Program Your Future, where I lead initiatives to educate and empower over 800,000 underrepresented and at-risk youth from all around the world so that they can acquire both the technical and the non-technical skills necessary for their retention and success in STEM, computer science, and entrepreneurship careers. I'm also the lead North America focal point for our Migration Youth and Children platform, where we're advocating for children and youth contribution in intergovernmental and migration-related decision-making processes. So as many of us know, there are 272 million international migrants, a third of which are under the age of 30. And each day that we do not prioritize the Global Compact for Migration, youth and children across the globe are facing dire consequences. Over the years, I've worked with students of all ages from all types of backgrounds, ethnic origins, genders, cultures, economic statuses, and disabilities and abilities. And what I can say is that now more than ever, it is crucial for us to focus on 3 main areas. 1, equal access to education. 2, economic and social integration. And 3, political participation. And to achieve these goals, we need to decide evidence-based policies that are driven by research and data and that are free from discrimination and xenophobia. As we can see from all of the amazing youth leaders sitting here today, migrant and refugee youth have great potential for solving today's challenges. And particularly young people on the move are a very, very unique pool of talent, ideas, and entrepreneurship. Yet many are prevented from securing opportunities for learning or employment just because of their migration status and consequent lack of financial resources, social networks, mentors, peer support, and other support systems as they move and settle in unfamiliar places. So the question becomes, how can we as an international community help youth achieve their dreams and ambitions and unlock new openings for them to learn, earn, and thrive? And so I urge policymakers and governments to invest in youth on the move through capacity building and civic participation, to involve young people on the move at all levels in decision-making processes that affect their lives, and to partner with youth directly to build a more resilient world for all generations to come, leveraging our talents to co-create solutions. We need to recognize migrant youth as positive assets and advocate for their basic human rights. We need to ensure that education systems are responding to changing job markets and demands and are providing young people with key employability skills and soft skills too, such as critical thinking and adaptability. And we need to create livelihood opportunities that are both online and offline to make them accessible and connect youth with employment that fosters their talent to address local market challenges and fill in any gaps. And in this way, we can build more resilient, sustainable, and effective educational and work systems for young people on the move and recognize their rights and agency. At the same time, we need to streamline recognition of foreign qualifications and certifications too. And when we don't do so, it forces migrants to repeat schooling and training and to take positions for which they're overqualified, which also amounts to a failure in our civic system to utilize human capital to its full potential. And by conducting user research and actually focusing on identifying root causes behind challenges and barriers that are faced by migrants, we can also create policies that are addressing the actual needs. So for instance, let's say you're a policymaker looking to see how many migrant youth are attending school and how can school be made more accessible. It's not enough to simply look at registration data, because school registration data doesn't necessarily mean that these children are actually attending classes. And as I and other migrant youth know firsthand from our experiences, we know that there's challenges that our families face juggling day and night work shifts and the transportation struggles that can actually impact our attendance. And so these types of nuances are very difficult to capture in a database. And what ends up happening is that governments rely on their personal networks to obtain this kind of information. And I think this raises a great opportunity for on-the-ground researchers and NGOs to partner with governments to bring forward this kind of qualitative information to guide and support the understanding of social interventions. Additionally, if you reach the wrong cause due to lack of qualitative research or migration data on such issues, it can lead to very different solutions and outcomes. And if the solution is not actually addressing the root cause, it'll be ineffective in the long run and actually making a difference. Similarly, examination of root causes can actually help us find out what drives people to migrate in the first place, which is really helpful in understanding global migration and how we can create safer and equitable living conditions in each of our countries. For example, when families experience persecution, violence, or war, they're seeking migration for safety, stability, and freedom. When there's a natural disaster or pollution or crop failures or famine, people are moving for a better environment and food availability. And the last point I want to raise is that we can leverage artificial intelligence to really automate several government processes, such as processing emergency visa applications for refugees, or creating fact-based informational campaigns to address xenophobic attitudes, and fostering personalized learning experiences. So for example, at Program Your Future, I've leveraged artificial intelligence to develop educational learning games and apps that can be accessed from anywhere around the world and in any language too, without the added cost of a Wi-Fi connection. I've also designed web-based educational technologies, including virtual reality course materials, as well as tailored robot building and programming games that utilize machine learning algorithms and gamification to really create a personalized and engaging learning experience that sparks youth interest about high impact careers and also exposes them to role models that actually look like them and equips them with rigorous practice and knowledge to become high achievers in their school subjects and later on as they go into careers and make a real world impact. So so I like to just close off by saying across all my work, what I've seen is that when we urgently focus on these kinds of initiatives for economic empowerment and actually bring into classrooms and after school facilities access to high quality instruction, such as the live and self-paced interventions I've used here at PUF, we can directly influence migrant youth to build out their interests and proficiencies for high-paying employable skill sets and also bridge that current achievement gap that we typically see between more advantaged students and underrepresented populations. And I think that is the true power of the GCM and this week's IMRF, identifying these kinds of pressing barriers and priorities and advancing solutions that can foster partnerships that will enable us leaders to really work together to shape that beautiful future world we all hope to live in. So thank you again for asking this great question, Florencio. And I want to give it back to you to see if anyone else would like to add.
Thank you so much, Alankrita. And I think it's really inspiring to see how youth leaders and also social entrepreneurs are using technology to solve the needs that people use. You talk about development of skills, education, also how we can use technology to endorse all of that. And I don't know if maybe you can, our panelists here want to add a brief comment about that, or we can lead to the other question that is really linked with what Alankrita have said to us. I don't know, maybe Gregory want to add some few thoughts about it.
I don't have an answer immediately, but I will come back to you.
Perfect. So in fact, so I think it will lead us to the second question. And in fact, I want to ask directly to you. And again, thank you so much, Alankrita. Is what are some examples of effective facilitation of children and youth participation that you think that we can scale? So like Alankrita have shown us some examples, but maybe you have other ones that you think that we can scale for create more impact in the development of children and youth on migration context?
That's a good question. I will first of all start with presenting my organization, Africa Europe Diaspora Development Platform. We represent African diaspora in Europe, but also in the rest of the world. And today I'm here to represent also the African diaspora youth specifically. Okay. I will speak a bit louder. Okay. Sorry. So I'm here also to represent the African diaspora youth today. And from ADEPT, our organization, we have created a platform called Diaspora Youth Talk, in which we elevate the voices of diaspora youth and their challenges and their solutions to, of course, development, but also migration issues. And when we created that platform, we asked them what were the insights and how to, as a platform, but also international institutions could work with them on a more profound level. And those insights I would like to share with you today. The first insight that we received was also that they expect institutional stakeholders to work with them beyond remittances. I think through the IMRF, we've heard a lot of recognition of the remittances by migrants communities and diaspora communities, but it's very important certainly for second generation migrants that are born and are raised in their host countries, to work with them beyond remittances, to work with them on development projects, to support them on a technical and also on a financial level with their migration and development project in their host countries or in their country of origin. That's the first thing. The second point that came by was also that we have to focus on alternative migration streams. We were heavily focused on migration streams to Europe or to the United States or Canada, But I think with the war or the conflict in Ukraine, we've seen that a lot of African diaspora were also in Ukraine, and were like 20,000 African students also living in Ukraine and studying. So it shows that beyond the Western world and beyond the Western countries, there are very effective and also very present migration streams that I think we neglect or don't acknowledge enough, certainly in the GCM, but also in the process during the IMRF. It wasn't really recognized. And I think the call for alternative migration streams, whether it be from, of course, the South, from Africa to the American Lattice, or on the other way, or even from African countries to Asia, I think that's also within our platforms, within our discussions, also things that we need to discuss eventually. And my third point, I will look. I think it's also important for us as a platform, ADAPT, to also facilitate the language that we use. During the IMRF, during these days, I was also thinking about the accessibility of the language that we use on a technical level, of course, because it's very difficult sometimes to grasp all the terms and all the English. And English is my third language, which is not always difficult to understand everything. But also, of course, for Africa, we have a second and a third language, which is French and Arabic, even Portuguese. And when we're talking about the GCM, we're talking about also the progress declaration. It's mostly in English, and it's very difficult also to grasp for students, for youth, what it will mean on practical level, whether it be in African countries, but also in the diaspora in Europe, and yeah, for students that are working on, that are concerned about the environmental situation, but also about racial situation, also about discrimination, mental health. What will the GCM mean for them on a practical level? So that's my first point that I can already add to your question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Gregory. And I think you add really important points that we need to, the importance of creating those platforms that children and youth on the move, but also the diasporas have the chance to raise their voice, to share their initiatives, but also the importance of partnerships and the integration and participation on all of the stakeholders that are around the issues of migration. So I think it's really important. And I think that we can move on, and I would like to answer the same question to Mahmoud. I think with your experience and the work that you from your organization, you have also good examples of what we can do, what we can scale, how we can integrate more children and youth to be part of the execution, the proposition of solution, but also in the policy making or integration from the rights, and that they feel they are really part of the process. So you have the floor.
Super, thank you so much, Florencio. Just a sound check. Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
Okay, super. I think this is a very nice and quite reflective question to answer. But before I start, I think it's very important to say a spoiler that yes, youth have been putting in the efforts, adolescents have put in the effort to engage in community to support migrants integration, migrants' rights and health. However, there are a lot of barriers, whether caused by politics, whether caused by the social perception, let's say, of migrants in their communities, whether caused by discrimination and other social and cultural barriers that impact to which extent youth and young people can take action towards the integration of migrants in their communities. I will try to reflect on what we do as medical students around the world to support this intercultural understanding and also the integration of migrants in their communities. So one of our biggest programs that we do as the International Federation of Medical Students Associations is our exchange programs. Annually, we have about 15,000 medical students across the world, between countries, back and forth, exchanging experiences on medical education, on health practice, through which they get to acquire a global health perspective to the issues and the different needs of the population, so not their only population. And this helps sensitizes them to the different needs they might face from migrant populations within their own country. So there is this aspect, the professional aspect. But then these exchange programs as well also provide these students with the intercultural perspective and the intercultural understanding of the differences between the different populations, and strengthens their acceptance and respect to the differences in populations, which helps create and more also develop this kind of cultural and social sensitivity within their practice, but also within their daily lives as members of the communities. So this is one of the programs that are very crucial to build these bridges between students as migrants themselves, but also as recipients of migrants and as service providers as well. So this is one, exchange programs, and very important practice that could be scaled up in the different practices. Now, number two, a lot of our students worldwide in different countries, I can mention Iraq as an example, I can mention Lebanon as an example, take on community-based interventions. They engage, so they plan their own community-based interventions where they go on into migrant populations and provide medical care and healthcare services and counseling free of service, while also engaging in mental health and psychosocial support services, which also helps and strengthens the integration of migrants. This helps create this notion between these students as young people and between migrants as the common understanding notion between them, as they are part of their own community and as they are respected and not being left behind. And this is something crucial that needs to be scaled up, need to be supported by decision makers, need to be facilitated, not only supported, to provide the facilitation, structural facilitation, and perhaps also funding for this kind of community-based interventions to reach the migrants further behind. And last but not least, one of the ways we engage also in decision making or try to participate in strengthening the rights of migrants is through policy making and engaging in policy debates. And I will take the example of one of our member organizations in Australia, where an example of one of our national organizations in
Mahmoud, I think we are having a technical issue.
Can you hear me now better?
I can hear you
I'm
now.
trying to check. Okay, super. So I was wrapping up basically.
As you know, now we are
bringing one last example from one of our national member organizations on how we engage with policy making. So one of our national member organizations in Australia, on an annual. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, super. So I will wrap this up very quickly. So this national our members in Australia organize a march annually or a rally where they protest, say, or raise their voice against policies and legislations in their country, also in Australia, whether it's related to detention, migrant detention, or other migration policies that create the barriers and create the this kind of discriminations on equity towards migrants, and then try to promote awareness, but also promote their asks towards their decision makers. So with that, I would wrap up as some of the examples of how can young people engage through their own experiences, through their own fields, in developing and progressing the rights of migrants and health. And apologies for the technical issues. Over and back to you, Florence.
Perfect, Mahmoud. And don't worry, I think that we are now seeing that we have these events, that we have people online and on site, and always we have those technical issues. But I think the most important part is that we hear your message. And also I think you bring something really interesting, and it's the fact that it's something that has been discussed during the whole week, is the importance of children and youth that are engaged in everything that is related with health and also mental health. And I think some of the examples that you have addressed are really important to the discussion. Now, I think that before going to Caroline, to going forward to the question, you know, this is a panel. We're going to open for a Q&A. So, okay, perfect. So I think we will hear first from Caroline, because we have heard something really important, and is how stakeholders can be engaged in this process, how you can be part of this process, but also include youth leaders in the proposition of solutions. So I want to ask you, Caroline, what can stakeholders in decision-making positions pledge to do address those needs that have been expressed by Alan Krita, by Gregory, and also some of that will be addressed from the question on the panel. So you have the floor.
Thanks. Well, I think the short answer is we can do a lot. We can all do a lot. I think it's fantastic that the Migration Youth and Children platform has such a strong delegation here and has brought the voices of many, many young people through the consultations that they've done to this first IMRF. But if we imagine that by the time of the next IMRF, governments and other stakeholders have spent 4 years truly partnering with children and young people, and they come with children and youth representatives to the next meeting and bring the views of even more children and youth to those discussions are going to be richer and better informed, and the work that's done on the ground to implement the GCM is going to be more effective. We have to partner with children and youth if we want this GCM to have a positive impact on their lives. So it can all start with a pledge. So let's just do just that. And that means a genuine commitment to partner meaningfully with children and young people. And that is so much more than words. It means making space for participation, identifying and overcoming whatever the barriers are, which we've heard many today already, and then facilitating the participation. But also it involves making sure that children and young people then can have influence. It means listening to them, being ready to listen to them and take on board children and young people's views. And it also means being accountable for what happens next. And that's from the community level right to the next global discussions at the IMRF. So once the commitment is there, obviously there's a lot to do to support that meaningful participation, which could be part of a pledge. Maybe I can just share a few pointers which we have learned from experience of different ways of working with children and young people. So firstly, setting up the mechanisms for participation, and children and youth should be involved in that from the very start in setting them up. And maybe they won't be perfect from the start, but learning needs to be built into that. Partnering with children and youth organizations, youth-led organizations, and community-based organizations and civil society can really support with that. Obviously, putting safety first is crucial. Safeguarding for children participation is essential. And building a safe space where children and young people can feel safe and respected and supported and listened to. And as I mentioned, the barriers, they'll be different in different contexts, but understand what the barriers to participation are and work together to overcome them, whether they're financial barriers, accessing the communication technology to be able to join, or maybe being able to integrate in the community that they're in, which could be a barrier to being involved in the first place. And again, we've heard also the importance of supporting mental health and psychosocial support, and that will be an important part of participation. And as I mentioned, more than engagement, it's about how we're going to ensure that it informs our work, and that needs to be part of the mechanisms. And as adults and people working with children and young people, we need to be ready to listen and need to build our own capacity and challenge ourselves to do that. It also needs to be built into cross-border collaboration so that supporting the participation, states are discussing with each other about how that happens and ensuring across borders. We share in the chat a guide that we've developed through Destination Unknown on partnering with children and young people on the move, which has a lot more recommendations which really come from children and young people themselves that we've worked with, and different mechanisms that our members have tried, and also some concrete tools, including tools on challenging, being a good adult ally and developing good intergenerational partnerships. We're going to hear from 2 young people from the Pan-African Child and Youth-led Organization, the African Working Movement of Children and Youth. which is a long-term partner of GCM in West Africa, and which does incredible work that really demonstrates that partnering with and empowering children and youth themselves is just essential for children and young people to learn about their rights, to be empowered to fight for their rights, and to contribute to developing child and youth-friendly policies and practices. So let's hear from Mariam and Wilfred.
Moi, c'est Mariam Sidibé de la Guinée-Conakry et je suis membre de la Coordination nationale des enfants et jeunes travailleurs.
Please bear with us, I think we're just making sure.
India, qui consistait à la révision du Code de l'enfant guinéen, parce qu'il s'est avéré que l'ancien code ne prenait pas en compte tout ce qu'il fallait pour la bonne protection des enfants se trouvant sur le sol guinéen. Donc, la COLT, qui est une coalition de protection des droits des enfants, des acteurs de protection des droits des enfants, s'est réunie et s'est retrouvée avec les membres du Parlement de l'Assemblée nationale à Kindia pour voir les lignes qui ne répondaient pas tout à fait aux critères. Après réflexion, ils ont proposé des lignes et ces lignes ont été envoyées au niveau de la justice pour amendement et pour réadapter ces lignes en des lignes de droit, comme je vais dire ça comme ça. Après, la proposition de ce document a été envoyée au niveau de l'Assemblée nationale qui l'a adopté en 2019. Et en 2020, nous avons assisté, en 2021, nous avons assisté à un atelier national pour la vulgarisation, d'abord l'adoption, après la vulgarisation de ce document-là. Et en tant que jeune et en représentant une structure, notre participation a été d'abord la proposition de lignes. Et après, en vulgarisation, on a été acteur. On a d'abord demandé aux autorités si le document pouvait être transformé en version enfant, après pouvoir l'envoyer, le propulser à tous les niveaux. Quand je dis tous les niveaux, c'est tout le territoire national. C'est ainsi maintenant, il y a un nouveau code qui est appelé le code de l'enfant, le code révisé de l'enfant guinéen, et qui maintenant, à travers notre structure et d'autres structures, nous menons des activités de vulgarisation de ce document. Il y a un plan d'action qui a été élaboré et il y a la vulgarisation de ce document à tous les niveaux. Quand je dis tous les niveaux, au niveau des autorités, mais aussi au niveau des communautés les plus reculées.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Wilfred Ongene, de nationalité camerounaise, membre du mouvement africain des enfants et jeunes travailleurs. L'expérience de prise de décision dans laquelle j'ai eu à participer en tant que jeune a été autour des années 2019-2020 grâce à l'association des enfants et jeunes travailleurs du Cameroun. L'expérience a été surtout sur l'adoption du code de l'enfant, un document qui existait déjà mais qui n'avait pas encore été signé. Et dans la construction de ce document-là, dans le développement de ce document-là, nous avons eu la chance d'être invités en tant qu'organisation de l'enfant et des jeunes travailleurs au Cameroun. Notre rôle a surtout été de proposer des textes sur le thème de participation des enfants, de pouvoir s'assurer que le point de vue des enfants a été pris en compte dans ce document-là. Et c'est ainsi que j'ai participé. Et puis nous avons fait un plaidoyer pour que ce document-là puisse faire objet de loi auprès des députés. Et nous avons été vraiment la seule organisation d'enfants et jeunes, dirigée par les enfants surtout et les jeunes, à être présents à cette initiative-là. Ça a eu une valeur ajoutée pour nous, représentants de l'association d'enfants et jeunes travailleurs du Cameroun, parce qu'au préalable, nous avons consulté les enfants qui ont été au courant qu'un document comme ça va être proposé auprès des députés, qu'un document comme ça les concerne et qu'un document comme ça existe pour les protéger. C'est la valeur ajoutée. Et eux, forcément, qui ne connaissent pas la maîtrise des instruments-là, ont eu l'information et ont proposé leur point de vue qui a plus ou moins été pris en compte à certains points. La réunion, bien l'initiative était portée par les organisations de la société civile, mais surtout par le ministère de la Justice qui devait conduire aussi. Ça, c'était l'expérience dans laquelle nous avons participé en tant que jeunes représentants des organisations d'enfants et jeunes au Cameroun. Merci.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and also our leaders that sent the video. And something that I found really interesting is the fact that we are seeing something that has been also discussed this week, that what is the how the stakeholders are part of the process. And as you say, they have to listen. They have also have the will to be included, but also that it hasn't to be just in a global level. We have to start working in regional partnerships, in local partnerships, because the community needs to feel that they are part of the process, that they are being heard, but also that the solutions that they are giving to their own community, they have chances to scale and impact also more people around them. Also, I really thank all of our panelists for answering our first question. But now I think that we're going to give the floor or the space for 3 questions. How is it going to work? We first are going to give space for the first question that is going to be online. I think we have already one request from Sheku that
yeah, I think I can summarize the comment earlier that
okay, perfect.
Saw. So Sheku works for the Advocacy Network for Migration in Sierra Leone. He does amazing work both on the ground and humanitarian needs, and he's been raising to our attention in the past month or so that there's a number of female migrants in Lebanon who are stranded currently. He's been trying very hard to seek government support and support from authorities, from humanitarian agencies to help repatriate them, but he's finding it very, very difficult. So I think the first question here, perhaps to Caroline or anyone in the room, really is how can those youth who are working on important humanitarian responses at the grassroots level access the support that they need to try and access funds or the appropriate contacts to connect the grassroots appeals for help to the higher authorities.
Yeah, we from the platform, from our diaspora platform, we've noticed that diaspora in those countries are very, very active, and I think we have to, for us as platform, we have noticed that we have to strengthen the linkages between the diaspora networks and the embassies more in, first of all, towards advocacy on a more international level, but also for funding, try to help them, try at least to advocate also for funding for these youth organizations working on these teams, whether it be, of course, for this topic in Lebanon, but also coming back to what I said earlier about Ukraine, we noticed that the first to react were diaspora organizations and the diaspora networks. I think if I could answer to them directly, I would say that strength in numbers, so to work with others, other African diaspora organizations and youth organizations that are in Lebanon, but also on the continent, to advocate on this matter and make sure that they're heard, but also find fundings through international stakeholders.
Thank you, Gregory. I think now maybe we have any question for people that is here on site. Want to ask any question to our panelists? Feel free. Maybe you can raise your hand.
The questions, we did get one online as well.
Yeah.
From Jane, it says, how do you suggest that youth can help raise the voices and needs of the youngest children?
Perfect. I think that maybe Alankrita or Mahmoud can give us your insight on that question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the best way to do so is look at your city and look at what kind of political structures are there, whether it's going to city council meetings or looking at if you can join the youth advisory board, if your city has one, or even advocating to start a youth advisory commission where children and youth can represent and voice out their needs and actually bring it to the in front of policymakers on what exactly needs to happen to make a difference for the youth community. Another thing is, a lot of times, this is a great question because while designing policy, there's children particularly don't leave much of a data trail. And as a result of that, they become underrepresented when it comes to the planning of future cities. And so what I urge policymakers, especially anyone who's attending here today, is that always make sure to co-design with migrant youth themselves, both young and old, folks who are digitally literate or not, while also keeping in mind all of our different intersectional identities, including, folks from different genders, ethnic origins, disabilities, and sexual orientations and religious beliefs, so that any policy that comes out or any city service that comes out is actually for everyone and designed to be accessible by everyone and not leaving any, particular person out. So again, this is a great question, and I urge you to, immediately look at what the civic processes are in your city and advocate for a youth advisory commission, or, join the commission if it already exists.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Maybe you want to add some points?
Yes, if I can, I will try to add very quick points. If I understood the question correctly, it was how can youth, those who reach the point of participation, take other youth and bring them also to participation, if I understood the question correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is a very, very important question, and something that it's really thought-provoking. Many of us as young people, we are so enthusiastic, we are so energetic that we dive into our advocacy. We try to reach and push for ourselves in the tables, and to participate. But then when we reach this, we take it more of as a competition, more of, we forget that, okay, we are in this together as young people, and we need to break the barriers between us, and we need to collaborate between us. So this is what I want to emphasize, that when we reach a point where, okay, we are empowered, some of us is empowered, it's very important that we remember that we are representatives of the bigger group, and we need to bring the bigger group to the table. This is through collaboration. If there is no chance to bring other chair to the table, if there is a chance to push for another chair at the table, push for it. Bring other youth to the table with you. If there is a chance to empower other youth, to share your experience with other youth, this is very important. Do it, because the empowerment of other youth is the empowerment of you yourself, your own group, your own background, and this strengthens your position. So I think this is a very crucial reflection to have in mind, that we need to think as a unity, as young people together, what is best for me, what is best for any other young person is also the best for each and every one of us. Over and back to you, Florencio.
Thank you so much, Mahmoudi, and think you addressed really important points. But I think also this is a key question, and I would also love to hear your perspective from the stakeholder perspective, how stakeholders engage and support youth in their initiatives. So over to you, Caroline.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding to what I said earlier, I think when it comes to supporting the younger children and youth also being involved in that, I think maybe it's important to look at what mechanisms are already there. Is it possible to have, young child advisors as well, and work for youth organizations, youth-led organizations, and youth groups to work with civil society, work with other community leaders to support, younger children's engagement, and taking into account, some of the factors that you need to think about when doing that, including safeguarding, as I mentioned before, and ensuring that you use the right tools. Obviously, for younger children, there will be different ways of ensuring their engagement, thinking of maybe more arts-based approach to allow them to participate in a way that's appropriate for their age. And there are some excellent examples of that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Caroline. And well, yeah, unfortunately, we are getting until the end of our event, but maybe we can take just one more question from the floor. I think here we have one, and maybe with that, then we wrap up and go into our closing remarks.
Thanks, Florencio, and good morning, everyone. I'm from Venezuela. I live in Barranquilla, in Colombia, and I represent the largest migrant crisis in the continent. The Venezuelan people, we are now more than 7 million in Americas and also in other countries, and I would like to know which strategies do you recommend to ensure the equitable representation of the diasporas in all these spaces, like Latin America, like people from Asia, from Africa, from Middle East, because for us, it's very important to have a voice. For the first time, we are representing our people in this space in the United Nations, and I would like to learn from you, what are you doing to ensure our represent in this important forum. Thanks.
Perfect.
I will
Yeah,
answer.
maybe Gregory can.
How ADEPT has started was, of course, African diaspora organizations coming together, identify their problems, to know what was needed to answer them. That was the first step. There were different from different countries, from the UK, from the Netherlands, or France, came all together and they said, yeah, we're facing the same issues, the same challenges, the same problems. We have already our solutions, but it's on a small scale. You can have solutions in French, you can have solutions in Netherlands, but it will always remain on a small scale if you are isolated from everyone. So they came together and they said, why not create one platform that represents ourselves, has one voice, and when we go to the table with other institutions, whether it be for us the European Union, the United Nations, or even others, we can talk in one voice, and it's not like a fragmented platform or fragmented community. We're one, and we have like established our issues, what we want, and how we want to receive support. I think that's the first, or the two first points I would like to say. And then it's also important to have the inclusivity from all the communities. Is it only Venezuelan diaspora, or is it also others diaspora? That's a
case.
Yeah, in your case, yeah.
In Venezuelan diaspora.
Okay, then it's easier because then you have like a homogeneous community. But for us, for example, it's quite difficult because we have heterogeneous communities, Africans from all of diaspora from all over Europe, but also Africans from all from the north, from the east and the west. So it's quite difficult to always have the same thought. But I think that's very important as a platform, and then as a community, when you go to others and when you represent yourself, the IMRF or other, to have the same thought, the same voice, and to really establish your goals and the goals you want to reach and how you want to reach it. After you receive, for example, funding from international institutions, or after you get the visibility in these platforms, what's the next step? And also for us, ADEPT, of course, we are here at IMRF, but we're already thinking about what's the next step, how are we going to make sure that what we've learned here and what we've learned about the progress declarations and GCM will be disseminated on a practical level towards the people that are in Brussels, or the people that are in Paris and stuff like that. So when you go to events like this, you come back and you have to be very transparent about the things you learned and how you can work together with these platforms, but also on how you can further your goal. That's the things I can say. I hope it can help you.
Perfect. Thank you, Gregory. Maybe I don't know if Ankrita or Martin have also any comments on that, and after that, I think we will jump into our closing remarks of this great discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to add to don't be afraid to start your own initiative. So if you're in a region around the world where you think, maybe there's not an organization that exists who can raise our voice, don't be afraid to start that organization and be that change maker, right? You can easily create your own social media campaign. You can go out into the field, start taking videos to show the truth of, migrant journeys and share stories of migrant youth. So you can create that change. You can spread awareness on, the barriers that youth are facing and what challenges are there and what solutions can come out of it. Additionally, if you're looking for any capacity building opportunities, definitely consider, reaching out to us at MyCP and also at PUF. I'd be happy to, drop my contact information into the chat. And there's so many ways that you can get involved in, regional groups, receive skills and training, and really learn how to raise your voice. And representation is so important in making change. And additionally, if you're interested in research and data, using, surveying tools is a great way to collect information in an easy way. And, you know, so many, about 85% of the world's population is on smartphones. So even creating a simple survey that you send out through WhatsApp or through other social media mechanisms can get you that data to, you know, really create change and find insights to bring back to policymakers. So again, this is a great question, and I'll go ahead and drop my contact information in the chat if you want to talk more.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alankrita. In this case, Mahmoud, I don't know if you want to add something, or we can go from the closing remarks.
For the sake of timing, I would say with the closing remarks, especially it would be hard to add after what has been said already. So yeah.
Perfect. So first, I want to say thank you to our panelists, to Caroline, Gregory, Mahmoud, Alankrita, and also thank you to all the ones that were participating, really active on the chat and share many of the initiatives that they are doing in their own communities. I think that it's really interesting to see the dynamics of how youth and children are doing action in their own communities, and also how they are engaging the different stakeholders to put in practice the Global Compact of Migration. So again, thank you, Caroline, Gregory, and Rita and Mahmoud, and then I go the space to Alicia to the closing remarks.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you. You are really amazing. That was truly inspiring. As you could have seen, youth recommendations hold a sense of positivity about the future, because I think this is younger people tend to face all issues with kind of like a fixate attitude. And this is why I think governments and international organizations should really listen to youth recommendations. And thank you very much to Caroline to pledge to make space for children and youth and facilitate their meaningful participation. Definitely, we as MyCP, we look forward to working with you, and I'm also sure that many organizations that form part of MyCP would also love to hear more how they are going to make that happen. So yeah, we look forward to working with you on that for sure. And I was wondering whether Verena would like to also add like a final couple reflections from the discussion, just a couple of sentences, and then we all proceed with our day.
Thank you. I don't know what to say. I think you said it all. I don't really add any more comment. I think this is a conversation that must continue. We need to take it out of this room into the communities, into the places where young people live. I really think we need to, I mean, having listened to also what you were saying, examples where technology was being used, and with rethinking of how we collect data and safeguarding questions. How do we also make sure that your youth organizations are safe for everyone? I think there is, you know, let's have a roadmap. And I think that would be something perhaps to do after the IMRF. We have another 4 years to go, you know, as sort of a roadmap. Where do we want to be 4 years from now? And setting those goals very clearly. Clear on my end, and I think Caroline, you had said it, the official youth delegations where young people were joining member states, that was pretty poor this year, right? So if we want to improve that, how do we do this early on? Ensuring that, you know, for example, what Wen Lee had said, that we have an indicator anchored around youth participation and sensitivity for child and youth policies, making sure that that really sticks and that we have that hook for measurement of GCM implementation. I know tracking funding, how much of the funding that is dedicated is actually, you know, co-created with young people or dedicated to youth-led solution. I think identifying a few clear markers that we can hold ourselves accountable to collectively and that we focus to move the needle, that would maybe be something that I'm taking from this conversation. And otherwise, I just want to thank you. Congratulations again for bringing us together. It's been a pleasure to be here. And, you know, just keep up the pressure, keep up the work. It needs to be uncomfortable. You know, need to make us and everyone uncomfortable because the status quo is not good enough. And that is what I'm looking forward to working towards and working together. Thank you.
Both here in the room and online. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming, and see you around during the last day of the IMRF.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely final day of the IMRF.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.